Hello, and welcome to the Science of Ecstasy and Empathy. My name is Maria Borgoff, and I am a relationship coach, an embodied mindfulness teacher, and an artist. So, what is the first response that you have when you hear the word ecstasy? What are some of the images or feelings or maybe even memories that you associate with this word, ecstasy? So go ahead and just feel it out. Hear the word, maybe say it out loud, feel it in your body, and what surfaces. Normally, we have a positive response to the word ecstasy. Sometimes we even equate it with pleasure or happiness even. But ecstasy is actually derived from the Greek root ekstasis, which literally means standing outside oneself. So this means that ecstasy is not just positive, and it's not just negative either, but instead it's referring to the level of intensity of the specific experience. So what's happening in the brain and the body that defines an ecstatic experience, that defines that level of intensity? Well, there are three hormones: dopamine, adrenaline, and serotonin. And these are three major hormones. There's many more than those three, but these three are the most common hormones that allow us to recognize pleasure and to recognize painful experiences or threats of danger. Now, in respectively, dopamine, adrenaline, serotonin, these hormones allow us to see the reward, and then they evoke a physical response so that we can take action to either get the reward or run away from danger. And then they also allow us to perceive dominance, or really to perceive if we have achieved a goal, if we have accomplished getting that reward, or if we have accomplished dodging the threat of danger. So in this experience of ecstasy, in this experience of standing outside of ourselves and having very intense emotional and physical responses, what's happening is with this level of hormones is there's so much of them. There is a significantly high amount of dopamine, adrenaline, and serotonin that is being emitted and also received in the brain, as well as the whole nervous system in our body. So I like to think about ecstatic experiences as being so much of these hormones, such intense level of feelings that we can't contain them all in this tiny body of ours. And so it's almost as if they spill out over us, and we get those feelings or those memories of watching ourselves having the experience or witnessing ourselves having the intense experience. So go ahead and try to recall a moment in time or an experience that you might have had where it might have been an ecstatic experience. Maybe it was extremely pleasurable, maybe it was extremely painful, whichever one it was. But maybe you can remember a moment where you felt as if you were watching yourself having the experience. If you can't think of anything, that's okay. You can always reflect later. But for me, the first thing I think of is a negative experience, but it's when I first got my heart broken. And I was so sad. I was so heartbroken. There was so much emotions and thoughts and feelings happening in my body that it felt as if I can vividly recall that moment of almost watching myself having this intense, heartbreaking experience. I remember crying, and I felt like I could see myself having the experience. That was a moment of ecstasy. Now, a positive one that I have sometimes often is when I am intensely laughing. I am just laughing, and it feels as if I kind of bubble up with joy and it spills over me. And I have this moment where I feel like I'm watching myself intensely laughing. So we can have these ecstatic experiences in almost any human activity, be it laughing, getting your heart broken. Maybe it's when you are hiking on a mountain and you are seeing this beautiful view. Maybe it's when you're at a concert and you are surrounded by people dancing to the same music. Maybe it's when you're swimming in the ocean and you just love the ocean and you are filled with intense feelings. So we can experience this feeling of standing outside of ourselves pretty much in any part of our day. It's all about cultivating the intensity of that experience. Okay, so empathy. Empathy is derived from pathos, meaning feeling. So we understand empathy most normally as being able to feel someone else's feelings. So it's really about me being able to feel you experiencing pain, or me being able to feel someone else experiencing joy. I'm not directly having that emotional experience, but I am able to feel it because I can recognize that you are having that emotional experience. So what's happening in the brain and the body that allows us to experience something that we're not directly experiencing ourselves? Well, this is what we call mirror neurons. And these mirror neurons actually reflect our external experience in towards our internal experience. And so this is what allows us to feel a physical response to someone else's emotions. And it's really important to understand that mirror neurons don't just live in the brain. There's a lot of them there, but they live in the whole nervous system, which starts in the brain and the spine, and then extends out through our fingers and our toes. So this is why we have a physical response to someone else's emotions. Maybe you see someone stub their toe and they go, "Oh, ouch, my toe," and you see them in pain and you immediately feel your own toe. That is your mirror neurons being triggered. That is your empathetic response. So we as humans are wired to experience empathy, and we can increase our empathy that we experience by increasing the amount of mirror neurons that we have in our brain and our body. So go ahead and take another moment to recall a time where you felt a physical response to someone else's emotional behavior or emotional response that they were having. Maybe you can think of something. Again, you can always reflect back. My first thing that I think of is when I'm watching a television show and someone does something really embarrassing, and I feel as if I am the one being embarrassed. And sometimes I try to cover my eyes. Sometimes I even stand up and walk out of the room and I say, "I'm just so embarrassed for them." That is a natural empathetic response. So my mirror neurons were triggered and I was feeling their emotions in my body and I was feeling their experience. So a more positive one maybe is when I see children laughing and playing, and seeing them being so joyful and carefree evokes a response in me where sometimes I want to go run outside and play around, and it just makes me want to feel that sense of freedom that I felt when I was a child. So those are kind of a few different examples of feeling empathetic, feeling someone else's pain or pleasure. You're not directly experiencing it, but you feel it simply by witnessing someone else having that experience. Okay, so what do ecstasy and empathy have in common? How do these two things relate? Well, it's in my belief and my practice that if we can strengthen our mirror neurons, if we can exercise empathy and increase our capacity to experience empathy, then we can directly increase our ability to experience ecstasy. So then, taking that idea that they are directly correlated, we can then consciously practice experiencing more pleasure and avoiding pain by more deeply connecting to other people's emotions, and also more deeply connecting to our own physical, emotional, and mental responses. So it really all boils down to relationships. What's your relationship like with yourself? What's your relationship like with your partner, your family, your parents, or your children? What's your relationship like with your coworkers or your boss, your friends, anyone that you kind of pass on the street or in the grocery store? Those relationships that we have with people and our behavior in our relationships is directly influenced by our ability to experience empathy and our ability to experience ecstasy. So if you are someone who wants to experience more pleasure, who wants to cultivate more profound connections with other people and your relationships, then I would love to jump on the phone with you. There is a button underneath this video, and you can click it and you can sign up to schedule a free discovery call with me. And together what we're going to do is we are going to assess the major obstacles that are stopping you from feeling connected, from experiencing pleasure, from deepening your relationships with other people. We'll address those obstacles, and then together we are going to create somewhat of an action plan. So I like to call this creating or designing a practice for you to then implement every day. It could be 5 minutes, it could be longer, for you to then practice empathy, increasing empathy so that you can increase ecstasy. Okay, so if you're interested, if this sounds like something that would help you, if you want to talk more, learn more about this method, then please click the button below, sign up for your time slot. It can be anything that works for your schedule, and we'll get started. I look forward to talking with you.